Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So we are in June 23rd. We were anticipating the OCG Forbidden Limited list, and I kinda want to talk a little bit about the OCG metagame and how it has been shaping up ever since before the list, because our format is going to be very similar to like how the OCG is looking like in probably around 1 month from now. And depending on the hits that they did in the OCG and the trends that we're going to be seeing, where it might shape up or it might dictate how we're going to receive our TCG list, because it's still up in the air whether or not we're going to get a TCG list before the North American and the European WCQ. However, many lists in the past have been done so a little bit beforehand, meaning that it would be welcomed if they do address some things that we have in the game sooner than later. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. This is the OCG meta breakdown for this month. This has been done in around the past 2 weeks, and there isn't a lot of sample size. There's only like a little bit, around 36 tournaments. However, this is a really fair representation of what has been going on in the OCG. The Fiendsmith cards are just really strong. That paired alongside Phantom of Yubel just corners Yubel to a point where it's actually a very oppressive meta contender. Snake Eyes is following suit. I think Snake Eyes is pretty much the best combo deck in the format at the moment. Despite its first few hits in the previous OCG list, the Fiendsmith engine just really helped facilitate a lot of their plays and just made the deck bolster its strong boards that it makes with despite this minor consistency hits. Then you have Tenpai Dragons. Tenpai Dragons is just one of those decks that just capitalizes on going second. It can break boards easily. It can play a really good amount of non-engine, which is something that the deck has going for it. And if the deck goes first, it does have a really good amount of tools in their arsenal that can just aid them whenever that happens. Here's a sample of the Yubel deck and how it looks like. The two Bestials in the main is basically to counter the Fiendsmith engine as well as the mirror match. Outside of that, it's pretty much like a little bit of non-engine, a little bit of the Fiendsmith engine, just very well-rounded. And then you have Snake Eye, not something very different from what we're used to seeing. They do have one Wanted and two Ash, and they just made up with the Fiendsmith cards, which is a very compact engine. It's only like 5 to 6 cards, so it just makes it very like convenient for them. And they do have Goddess of the Moonlit Sky, which is a card that also facilitates their combos. And then you have Tenpai Dragons. Again, just look at this list, you already know that the deck is just made for going second. Maxi and Pancratops are really good cards that you can just pair alongside this. And if they go first, they have really strong cards like Kaiser Colosseum and like Heat Wave and Dimension Shifter. So yeah, that's pretty much a conclusion of like a lot of things. Here's like WCQ Regional, where you just see these decks just doing very well, as well as a few others. But yeah, that's what has been going on in the OCG. Now that we have a good look and analysis of how the OCG has been shaping up, let's look at the lists. Okay, so Forbidden, we have Catapult Turtle and we have Kaiser Colosseum. I guess we'll talk about Catapult Turtle first, because this one is a little bit more unorthodox. Despite this deck not being a real meta contender, at least compared to the other 3 decks that we've been talking about, the Tachyon cards have done a very significant push in the OCG. We've had the Tachyon FTK deck just being played around a few tournaments, and that deck is very consistent. It can play around a lot of hand traps, and the win condition of that deck is Catapult Turtle. So this is just basically their way of dealing with the FTK. Will this change the playability of Tachyons in the future? That's very soon to tell, but for the time being, this is pretty much just going to be the end of the FTK, most likely. Kaiser Colosseum, we already had this card banned in both the TCG, well, in the TCG, and this card is limited in Master Duel. So it was only a matter of time until the OCG just made this hit. As you can see here on the screen, it says that we've already had that card like for a long time now. Yeah, this card is over 20 years old, so again, it was only a matter of time until this card gets hit. So what does this card do for the format? It takes away Tenpai's ability of building an oppressive board when they go first, because Tenpai is not really known for making oppressive end boards. They're basically known for breaking them, and just having cards like Kaiser Colosseum in the game just makes that deck very strong when they go first, because it pretty much forces the opponent to just play around it and not play cards that are commonly should be played against the Tenpai strategy. Does this stop Tenpai from going first, or whatever they plan from going first? That is soon to tell. We already can see another card in the limited section, but I'd say this was a very good hit. If it's banned in the TCG and limited in Master Duel, there's no reason for it to be at more than 1 in the OCG. Performance Plush Fire. This card got an errata, and more performance support is arriving in Rage of the Abyss, so I'm not surprised seeing this card coming back. Expect this to also happen in the TCG probably later in the future. Magic Spectre Unicorn. We already have this card limited in the TCG. Magic Spectres have not done anything, and their big difference is they do have Electromite. But I don't think this will shape up their strategy anytime soon. Beatrice Limited is a strange one. We already have Beatrice Limited here in the TCG, and I can tell you this right now, this won't change anything. Like, I feel like this card should just get forbidden. Like, it should not be limited. Being limited really makes no difference at all. It's still a 3 in the Master Duel, which I find kind of wild. So yeah, this is not a real hit. People will just keep playing this card, and I guess like it takes like Prosperity out of the equation. If you want to play Prosperity, like pair it out alongside your Fiendsmith strategy, it does make it more susceptible to hand traps. So like they can't just rely on summoning a second one. But yeah, this is not a real hit. Spillerite, another hit that's not real. Like outside of extravagance decks, and I don't think any deck suffers from this hit at all. They already semi limited it last list, and this is just them following up. Snake Eye Ash Limited. This is a big one. I would say this is a fair hit. As you can see here, it was already hit in Master Duel. This does significantly hurt the consistency of the strategy. However, I think as long as Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye and Poplar are both at 3, and Flambridge is still in the game, I don't think this is a real huge detriment. I think the deck has enough starters for them to like kick off their engine. I think the Fiendsmith engine just helps bolster this strategy and makes it possible for you to like perform your plays very optimally. This is just going to become a saggy one-off if you open it. We do see it, but the Bonfire also got hit, so this is another just consistency change that is heavier than the hit that they did with Wanted. Whether or not this will take Snake Eyes away from the format, we will wait and see. But at least in hindsight, I can say probably not anytime soon. Worst case scenario, they'll just rely on Snake Eyes as an engine for other decks like Rescue Ace. Number 40. This is a fair hit. This is basically like alluding to the FTKs that Gimme Puppet have. It's very unsure whether or this just stops all FTKs, but this stops one of the easier ones. So be wary of that. Be wary that Gimme Puppet probably still have some FTKs in the game. They're just a lot more susceptible to disruption, and they're a lot less consistent. Sangen Summoning. I also really like this hit. I think Tenpai Dragons have been doing very well in the OCG, and this card is a very strong card that just does that. This is very similar to Magical Midbreaker Field, and that card is limited here in the TCG. So just having a themed searchable version of that card that just works for Fire Dragons in general, like, is just really that powerful. Whether or not Tenpai will stop seeing meta play because of this, we will see very soon. But this is a really big hit for Tenpai Dragons, that's for sure. Summon Limit, I don't like this hit. I think just limiting it just increases the sack factor. I think the best hit that you can do is just put it in the Forbidden List like you did in the TCG. However, it is another floodgate they're hitting, which is a really good point on their behalf. Semi-limiteds, we see Bonfire, Quick Fix, and all the Dragon Rulers. I want to talk about Quick Fix first because if I'm not mistaken, Master Plan is still in the game and they still have everything else at 3. I'm not 100% correct on sure on that, but this is a really big push for Spiral, because Spiral is a very strong combo deck. You can make the argument if this deck is at full power, it's just as strong as Snake Eyes, especially after the Snake Eye hits. Whether or not this will see play, we might see it, but the deck is weak to Maxi and Mold Shami, so keep that in mind if you're playing this strategy. All the rulers are limited. They're all unlimited in Master Duel and they haven't done anything, so I think it's fair to say all of these cards just got power crept. The one card that you should be wary on is Blaster, because Blaster does give you access to Tenpai Dragons if it gets banished. So there might be a possible future where people just play multiple copies of Blasters in their Tenpai strategy. But that's pretty much it outside of that. Bonfire, another consistency hit. I don't think this is enough personally, but I'll hold my tongue until like the actual meta game shapes up, because this in the end is another consistency hit to Snake Eyes, and if you pair this alongside the one Ash and the one Wanted, they're slowly like making the Snake Eyes strategy just not be functionable, at least as a pure strategy. Unlimiteds, all these cards don't matter. This card was already a 3 in both Master Duel and TCG, so this is already nice. Colossus, whether or not we'll see this being played more in the future, this could be an important one, because in the past when Colossus was at 3, we used to see boards where they make multiple Colossus, but we just have way more answers to it now compared to like back in 2019 and 2018, so keep that in mind. Justiciar really doesn't do anything. It's the same thing as Denglong. It's still banned in Master Duel, which I find kind of funny, but yeah. The last thing Global did that was of meta relevance involved Tear Elements with Chaos Ruler, and T-Elements have not been seen meta play at all. That deck, it has been extremely gutted, and Chaos Ruler is in the forbidden list. So I don't think we'll see really notable things with this card anytime soon. It does help the Rika Plant strategy or Ragnaraka strategies, but that's pretty much it. Like, outside of that, it really doesn't do a lot. So I think this is more than fair. As long as cards like Halkifirax are not in the game, I think this card is fine. Be cognizant that they do still have Linkuriboh, which does help this card. And SP Little Knight is still in the game, so this is a 1-card SP Little Knight with her second effect. So those are things to keep in mind. But that's pretty much it. So what are my actual thoughts on this list? I think it's not a bad list. I think a few things in the metagame have been addressed. I do think Snake Eyes will get a little bit weaker after this hit, like after this list takes into effect. I think the Tenpai Dragon strategy is very, very like severely hit from this. I think that's the biggest loser out of this list. If we have a meta game like this one, despite it being so very few tournaments, I can see Yubel slowly taking over, and that probably being the top strategy in the OCG in the near future, because nothing out of that strategy got hit, and that deck has been seen a good amount of success. Voiceless Voice, Runic, and Branded are strategies that we'll probably see a little bit more play. We will probably see more rogue strategies like Melodious, like Labyrinth, like other Fiendsmith engines like Chimera. Rescue Ace might see more play because Snake Eyes can just be played as an engine in that strategy, and outside of Emergency being limited, and like Airlifter being semi-limited, they really don't have a lot going for them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you found this video interesting and to your liking and understanding. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep doing.